everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's day 11 in the 2023 Countdown to Christmas series, and the theme for today is Joseph's Coat. So I'm actually going to do 4 card fronts, but only finish this one. So we're going to start off with how I made this one, and this is a double Joseph's Coat technique. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but I decided to go ahead and do a second layer, and I'll show you what I mean as we go through the video. The first thing I did was I took a piece of watercolor cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and I'm taking 4 colors of Distress ink and applying them all over the background. Now these makeup brushes are really old. They're the first ones that I got, and I use them on my Distress inks. For some reason, I decided to use Distress inks today instead of Distress oxides, and I probably should have used the oxides because those are the better brushes. But I had these on my desk and I wanted to use them because I very rarely use the inks. The brushes were not the best, so you're going to see me do some things like rubbing the ink pad onto the paper. Not the best idea. Puts too much color on there, and you'll see how I try to fix it. So the 4 colors that I'm going to use are Shaded Lilac, Villainous Potion, Worn Lipstick, and Kitsch Flamingo. So the Shaded Lilac is fine once I put it on there, but then comes the Villainous Potion, and oh my goodness, way too dark, way too heavy, way too much of it. So I'm going to try to blend it out with my brushes. Again, it's not the best. However, one of the things that I will tell you about this technique is that it is extremely forgiving. So if you guys don't know what the Joseph's Coat technique is, I did my first one maybe a year or so ago on a hop, and I had never even heard of it. So what you're going to do is you're going to put layers of color down, and then you are going to heat emboss over it in clear, and then whatever you heat emboss, that's going to trap that color underneath of it, and then you're going to put a darker color like a navy or a black or a dark green or a dark red, something that's really dark over top of it, and you're going to wipe off the excess ink, and it's going to trap the color under the images, but then have the rest of it be that dark color, whatever you put over top of it. So you can see here this background looks extremely messy. I'm going to go ahead and I let this dry for a little while. I actually did the other backgrounds after this. I put it to the side because Distress ink and Distress oxide take a long time to dry. I did hit it with my heat tool, and I tested it by putting a little bit of powder on the paper. And if it sticks, that means that the ink is still wet, and you're going to either have to wait more or try to dry it, because if you do that, the embossing ink will stick to areas that you don't want. I am using some light kaolin clay over the background to get rid of some of the static from your fingers and just the excess things that the powder could stick to. I'm going to lay the first layers of snowflakes down and then stamp them in Versamark ink. These stamps are from My Favorite Things. They are the Snowflake Splendor. These are a really old set. They were given to me by, I believe, Phyllis. She gave it to me for the girls, and I found it in the Christmas box because they can use everything that's in my Christmas box. So I did those, and then I am heating it I'm going to apply some Stampendous embossing powder in clear over top of the whole entire thing, brush off any of the excess powder that's in places that I don't want it to be in, and then we are going to go ahead and heat it with my heat tool. And you'll see that it turns from that whitish powder to clear. And in this, you can even see that the color from underneath, those pinks and those purples, are trapped in those snowflakes. It's really a cool technique, and if you guys haven't tried it out, I would recommend doing it. Some tips are to go ahead and use images that have a lot of solid areas, because that's what traps the color underneath. So you don't want to use outline stamps. You want to use something that's solid, like a solid flower or a solid background or words, things like that will have some thickness to it. So I did put that aside to let it cool down for a minute or two. And now I'm taking some Distress ink and Chipped Sapphire and going over the whole entire thing. Don't worry about going over the snowflakes or the parts that you emboss, whatever you go ahead and emboss, because you're going to be able to take a paper towel or a cloth or something to buff off that ink. Embossing ink will resist anything that you put on top of it, so it's going to go ahead and wipe off very easily. So you see I have a paper towel in my hand, and I will go ahead and wipe off all of those images with that towel just so that the color can show through. So you're not going to see that chip sapphire, you're going to see that lovely pink and purple underneath of it. I'm going to go ahead and let that Distress ink dry. Once it was dry, I am going to go ahead and add the light kaolin clay powder to the whole entire card front, because we're going to go ahead and emboss a second layer. So this is where the double Joseph's coat comes from, and the snowflake images are from a Hero Art stamp set called Holiday Sentiment Strips. There's 3 small snowflakes in there. I decided to put them down. I'm going to do the same exact thing, use Versamark ink them up, stamp them down, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that clear embossing powder on. However, I was very, very impatient. I didn't wait for them to dry. Or the background to dry enough. I had to go ahead and wipe it off several times because the snowflakes were just big clumps. But I eventually got to a point where a couple of these snowflakes could still be saved and I could still emboss them. So I used the powder on top of them, and then I am doing the same thing that I did. I let it sit to the side for a little bit, let the snowflakes cool down, and now I'm using Distress Oxide in Black Soot. So I decided to use Distress Oxide because I had it on my table. Normally I probably should have stayed with the Distress ink, but decided to switch it up, did the same thing, covered the entire area, and now I'm going over all of the snowflakes with the paper towel and buffing that ink off. So now it's kind of hard to see on camera because there's not a huge difference between the black and the chip sapphire that we used, but in real life, the little snowflakes are actually chipped sapphire, and then the background is black. So I'm going to go ahead and put that to the side and then do my 3 other ones. Now, I'm not crazy about these other 3, but I did leave them in there because I wanted to do a little bit of experimenting and showing you guys what I thought I was going to be able to do. And really only one of them came out to where I probably would use it. This paper is very, very thin. It's scrapbook paper. I go ahead and I use some Distress ink in Pine Needles, and then I'm going to go in with some Distress ink in Lucky Clover and add some color to almost to the whole entire background, but so that you can still see that pattern through it. That's what I wanted, was to be able to see the pattern through. So my idea was to heat emboss on this and you'd be able to see the pattern. Next, we're going to start working on a scrap piece of red cardstock that I have. I used this to make that box card from the other day, and I took just a scrap of it and some Distress Oxide in aged mahogany to go around the edges. And then this last one, I didn't do anything except emboss on it. So the stamp set is from it's Colorado Craft Company, and it's called Nordic Ornament, and I love the images on here. So I wasn't sure how this was going to look because it's a super busy background, and I do end up adjusting it. This one is probably the only one that I would actually use in a card, and it would be just a faded background because you're not going to be able to really tell what these images are unless you look really close. So I'm doing the same exact thing, using the light kaolin clay over top of it, using Versamark to stamp out the entire background, and then we're going to go ahead and coat it with the clear embossing powder and heat it up. So after I am done heat embossing this background, I'm going to go ahead and put it off to the side, and we're going to get ready to work on the green background that I used 2 colors of Distress Oxide with. I'm using that same Hero Art stamp set called Holiday Sentiment Strips, and I'm using the main image. It's a tree and it has sentiments all down it, and it comes with a die that cuts out the sentiments in strips, so you have you can stamp it once and get a ton of sentiments for a bunch of cards. So while you're watching me do the same exact process, I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about the series. If you guys have not checked out the intro video, I will make sure to link that below. My friend Marie from Marie's Vermont Creations and I are doing 25 days of Christmas ideas. We have all kinds of projects. We have gifts, tags, cards, ornaments, etc. We have a lot of good stuff coming up. We are only 11 days into it and we have a lot of great ideas. So make sure that you check out the intro video because there are prizes and you want to make sure that you know how you can be eligible for them. So make sure that you check that out. I will also leave Marie's channel linked below. So go over and check hers out so you can check her intro video out and see the projects that she's made because she and I have two completely different styles of card and craft making. So you'll get the common theme or the product and two completely different ways to use it. I hope that you guys are enjoying this series. Make sure that you leave comments, questions if you want to see anything. We love the feedback. So thank you guys to everyone who has left feedback, who has liked the videos, and welcome to all the new subscribers that I've gotten. I also have a disclaimer that now that I've hit 700, there will be an additional giveaway. If I hit 750 by the end of this series, I will do another additional giveaway. So lots of chances to win things. Make sure that you check out the intro video. Okay, now back to the cards. I am using a stamp set from Concord and Ninth, and this one is called Merry Shapes stamp set. And I'm just using the Joy. I end up cutting this down because I was spraying my hands and I accidentally sprayed the paper. So there was a little blob on the bottom. So I did cut that down. If I'm going to use it on a card, I would use it as like a little bit of a strip. But again, I don't love these other two backgrounds that I did. This is probably the only one that I really liked. So now to finish this one off, because this one has been sitting on the side for a little while and the embossing powder has cooled, I'm going to take some Black Soot Distress Oxide and go over the entire thing. However, the background is so dark and has such a pattern to it, it doesn't really work out. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Hero Arts Intensified Black Ink cube and go over everything. Now, don't be scared because it looks like it's a big black mess. I put that to the side to dry for a little bit and then we come back and work on it. Don't worry, it actually comes out really, really well. So I'm going to put that to the side. We're going to work on the green one and we're going to do the exact same thing. Now, like I said, this is very thin scrapbook paper and it just kept crumpling up on me. Probably if I had it matted down to something, it wouldn't have been as bad, but because it's so thin and because we had worked with it and it has ink on it already, it was very easy to crumble. So I like it, but I think because there's too many crinkles in it, I don't know that I would use it. I might use it as the back of like a scrapbook page or something like that, or like a mixed media, it would probably work really well with, but I don't think for a card. So now I'm going to go and do the same exact thing with the Joy. And again, I don't know whether it's because it's the red that I chose or the red and the black together. I just don't like them. I don't know. I don't love this one. You guys will have to let me know what you think. Again, I was just experimenting. I've only done this with white paper, then used distress inks or distress oxides and done one set of stamping and then a color over top of it. This is the first time I've done double stamping. First time I've used pattern paper or a colored cardstock. So now I'm back to that one. I went ahead and wiped off that background and it looks so much better, doesn't it? So here are the backgrounds. So you can see the Joy, the green one, the black one, and then the one that we end up making into a card. I'm going to be attaching the front to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base and using my Bearly Arts glue. I'm also going to add some snow and some little sparkles in with some white gel pen. I just thought that it needed a little bit of extra something. And then that is the card for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have comments or questions, make sure that you leave them below. Make sure you subscribe, check out the intro video to see everything you have to do to win the prizes, and I'll be back again real soon for another video. Bye!